These Walls Could Talk. I'm your hostess with the mostest today, Wendy Stuart. Tim is not with us today, so I'm just dancing by myself. But I have all of you out there watching me, so I'm not alone. Now, apologies for the hair. It is a bad hair day. I know a lot of people experience this on rainy or humid days, but it is totally and completely a bad hair day. And I did my best, but I'm still looking a little bit like a chicken today. But I'm really, really happy to be here. I had a great weekend, and I hope you did too. On Saturday, I performed at Boxers with the Imperial Court of New York. And of course, all of our shows are to raise money for other organizations. And the coolest thing about it was we did a disco theme. What could be better than a disco theme? What was really interesting to me, though, I picked a song by a group called The Flirts called Passion. And I thought it was a really popular song, but a lot of the people there who were definitely from the disco era had never even heard of it. So go figure. And of course, the kids that were hanging out at the bar were just embryos when it came out. They never heard of it either. But you know what? I'm an entertainer. I made them laugh. I made them sing along because that's what we do. And speaking of entertainment, up and coming, I've got Theater for the New City, May 23rd. They're having their Lower East Side Festival. If you've never been to it, it is 3 days, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, of really nonstop performances. They've got 3 theaters and all kinds of things. And bless Crystal Field for keeping it going all of these years. And I am going to be there on Friday night. That is May 23rd. And my time that I go on stage in the Cabaret Theater is 10:04. I know that's like a little odd, right? But anyway, we each get 10 minutes. So if you could be there at like 9:45 in case we're running early. I'd love your support. I certainly would, because it's all about your support and it's all about community coming together. Listen, I am really about these feel-good moments these days. And when I do this show every week, and Tim agrees with me, we just want to make people happy. We want to make their hearts warm. And we want them to just have those incredible memories and things that make you feel all warm and fuzzy inside. So I have to tell you what makes me all warm and fuzzy inside. Who didn't love the show Little House on the Prairie, right? And today, my guest, Dean Butler, played Almanzo Wilder on the show. And he has a memoir that he wrote, which I'm sure is completely fascinating, which you have to pick up. It's called Prairie Man, My Little House Life and Beyond. As if there could ever be life beyond Little House on the Prairie. It was just so perfect. In the memoir, Dean shares the story of the good and the gloriously imperfect people. You know what? I just like that. What has been Dean's life since the book has come out? And he'll be here to talk about an amazing career filled with abundancy, including producing and directing. So a round of applause for Dean Butler. All right, there you are.
Here we are.
There you are, just like magic.
Here we are. Hi, Wendy.
Hi, how are you? First of all, welcome to the show. So happy to have you here today.
You're very nice to include me. I really appreciate it. And as you were talking about your organization, what is your organization that you utilize to help people?
So I have a couple that I work with. I realized, you know what, Dean, I used to, like, in my imagination, want to grow up and be Angelina Jolie or Madonna, so I could use my celebrity to raise money, because that's very much like that. And as a kid, I sent off the $5 donations. What I've learned as I've matured is I can work with different organizations as a performer. And, we charge a nominal amount to get in. All our tips, which are many, are pooled all together. And then a check is written out. The organization that I worked with this week is the Imperial Court of New York. We are the largest LGBTQ organization in the country that raises money for other LGBTQ organizations. And LGBTQ aside, we go into nursing homes all over with our program called Hearts and Voices and entertain the people in the nursing home. So there's a million things I could tell you. It makes me feel good. And you know what? I can raise far more money this way than those paltry little checks. But yeah, it's about giving back, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Years ago when wow, I'm hearing an echo slap back here coming at me. But anyway, years ago, I went into the motion picture television home because my mother-in-law was a resident there, and I used to sing karaoke on Sunday afternoons for, and someone who the residents, older people, just are so appreciative of people coming in willing to share anything of themselves. It was very gratifying. They make you feel like you can really do it, and that was really fun.
Right. And it really makes you feel like you're, affecting someone's life.
Yeah. So you're having fun. They're having fun. You're having fun. It's like, what could be better than that?
Well, they're having fun. And like I opened up my little spiel about you talking about Little House on the Prairie, heartwarming, right? I mean, everybody loved that show, the characters in it. It was from another time. I'm sure that time had their challenges, but I would like to say a kinder and gentler time than now. Right now, I often feel, especially living in New York, it's Blade Runner here. So,
is it really? I haven't been in Manhattan in a number of years, but yeah, I would think it is a challenging time. I mean, our country is really
right.
We're very much at a crossroads, and how we look at people and concepts of acceptance and all of that are really top of mind for a lot of people right now.
And this word called empathy and
yes,
and
yes,
that. And the thing about Little House that really impressed me, Allison Arngrim was on the show. I had no idea the amount of events that you guys continue to do afterwards. You must be the only television show that has the abundance of those events happening.
Well, look, I don't, Wendy, I don't know if we're the only one at all, but we certainly, what we have experienced and through the last decade or so is that there really is an ongoing love of the messaging that Little House provides to people. And I look at Little House as being the way Michael Landon wrote it. I mean, Michael did not adhere strictly to Laura Ingalls Wilder's books. He utilized the framework, the environment of Little House that Laura wrote about so beautifully as a foundation for telling stories about people, all kinds of people in all kinds of situations. And what that allowed him to do, I think something that was really important to him, is Michael wanted to offer people foundational lessons in morality and decency and fundamental goodness. And he did it very clearly. There was not a lot of ambiguity in Michael's storytelling. You knew who was good and you knew who wasn't good. And he played everything open. There was nothing hidden in Michael's storytelling. You knew who the hero was and you knew what the problem was. And then the audience got a chance to watch that problem being worked out on an episode basis. And the clarity of that gave people an opportunity to consider who they wanted to be or who they could be in a particular situation. And I think Michael his goal was to inspire people and to get intergenerations of people to talk to each other. He loved the idea that grandparents, parents, and children could sit in front of the television and watch this program and take something away from it. Now, everyone might get something a little different, but there is the basis for everybody to communicate together as you watch the program. And the clarity of the lessons that Michael offered, I think give people of any generation, any time, an opportunity to consider what the best way to behave is. Right. How do we treat one another? And I think this is why the program, I think, in a nutshell, is why the program has continued to flourish the way it has.
My question is, wasn't it considered controversial that he took the poetic license? Well, you know what? Whenever we interpret anything for stage or screen, there is the creative license to add your own to it. And obviously, you know, he used it for good, but it was considered controversial that he did that.
Well, I think and we, you know, the thing that you have to always keep in mind with Little House is that the show was based or inspired by the writings of Laura Ingalls Wilder. Yeah. Laura wrote beginning in the 1930s about her life on the American frontier. Laura wrote about what her family did to survive and the very many adventures. And she wrote the truth, but not all the truth. There was a lot that got left out, but she was there to try and inspire young people during the Depression, as America's sinking into the Great Depression and young people are really struggling to see how they fit into the world and how they can survive. Laura offered lessons in simple living and what people did to get by and get through that inspired a generation of young people. Michael wrote about how people felt about what they did. So Michael didn't spend a lot of time talking about how to bake bread or how to plant a crop or how to build. We saw all these things happen, but it wasn't a teaching exercise in that sense. What Michael focused on was the emotional life of the characters. And he got you to feel profoundly what people were thinking and what they did, how they survived emotionally. And the life that they had. Michael talked about, David Rose, our wonderful composer, told me one time that when he was looking at how to score the show, the original concept was to score the show with a stand-up bass and a mandolin and a banjo and maybe a guitar and some light rhythm. I mean, that was the original concept. But David immediately pushed back on me. He said, no. This needs to be Gone with the Wind. This needs to be this rich emotional life. So as much as these people, the Ingalls and everybody in Walnut Grove, are living this very simple life, the emotional immediacy of what they're doing is huge. And David wrote it that way so that they may be walking down, you know, a little dirt road or sitting by a pond having a conversation. And it's this simple environment, but the underscore that's playing underneath that conversation is rich and powerful and evocative. And David is who made people cry. Right. I mean, absolutely. He led the audience exactly where Michael wanted them to go.
Right.
And because primally he touched those things in our humanity that told us what these people were feeling. So it was really an emotional exercise. Always. Yeah. And I think people felt safe there. They felt heard. They felt they could understand very clearly what was going on with these characters. Everything was wide open in the writing, so they knew exactly what the circumstances were, and they got to see the Ingalls and others cope with the circumstances that they were faced with.
I think cope is a very important word, though, that you brought up, because you know, you've got your music person and Michael Landon. They're working in tandem, and they're working on a very high emotional level that people could absolutely connect to. I think what is amazing to me that in this day and age, people are really still connecting to it, because I think they need it. What was shown in Little House on the Prairie will not be passé. And I think people are, as you know, grabbing onto it.
Yeah. No, absolutely true. Look, I think that Michael's storytelling was simple, but it was foundational for human beings. And so our circumstances that we face may have a great deal more nuance than what Michael wrote about as he wrote stories. But he got you to think about who you wanted to be in the world, and it gives you an opportunity to choose in more nuanced circumstances that we live in today, how maybe you want to behave. And I think that's invaluable. And also what Michael gave us is this: when the world does get overwhelming, and it can become overwhelming for people, what Michael gives everybody in his storytelling is a reset moment where you can come back to something that's much simpler,
Oh, that's brilliant. Absolutely.
Clearer.
Yeah.
And you can reset yourself a little bit. And we've met people through the years who have come to us and talked about how the Ingalls were their family growing up.
Amazing.
Because they didn't have that family experience at home. It just wasn't possible in the circumstances they were in. But Michael gave them a family to connect to, and people stay with that. They have stayed with us for generations because of that.
Yeah.
So really powerful.
Continue to follow you. Now, what was the catalyst behind you started? The book came out in 2024, but when did you start writing it? 2023, I think I read.
Yeah. So in 2022, I really started to focus on the fact that the 50th anniversary of the series was coming, and so many of the women in our cast had written books. I mean, both Melissa's written a book, Karen Grassley had written a book, Ketty Lester had written a book, Charlotte Stewart had written a book. Even the young girls, the women now who were babies then, several of them had written books. No male cast members had written a book, and I just reasoned that if there was a time, it was now, because there would be critical mass around the program in the 50th anniversary year. Yeah. So we did a proposal. I did a proposal and submitted it to Kensington. My friend Mary McDonough, who played Erin Walton on The Waltons, walked my proposal into her editor. Yeah. The two casts get along very well.
I would think. Yeah.
We represent a certain kind of storytelling in that era that was unique to television. At its core, it was of a different time, but it had resonance for people for all the reasons that we've talked about. So the editor at Kensington read my proposal and called me the next morning and made an offer, and we were off and running. So that was that. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. Was this the first book you've written?
Yeah. No, I've never imagined that I was
all over the internet trying to dig up, everyone's got like something from yesteryear that maybe they buried. And for me, this came up as the first one that you've written. And you know what? As you know, timing is everything. 50th anniversary. What could be better? Your fan base, of course, had to be like gaga over it.
It was really fun going to events and, selling 250 books in an afternoon. I mean, it was, it was pretty powerful to see the reaction that it got. And I'm doing a second one now. And so the first one has led to a second one. It's not a memoir. It's much more observational about the world. And I think it really speaks to, Wendy, the things that you're talking about.
Yeah, how it would resonate to now.
Yeah. Well, it's really about, it's looking at the world through the lens of Little House and the lessons that Little House taught, and how those lessons, how those themes are playing out in our culture today.
Right.
The title of the book is Living the Prairie Way. And so I think it's a much more challenging book to write than a memoir, because the memoir spills out of your memories. It's like you're peeling back the onion of your life. This book is, there's much more analysis that has to go on, and really thinking about how the themes tie to the world today. And I think the other thing that's challenging, Wendy, and I'm sure you can appreciate this, is as much as I want to be really outspoken about what I feel about what's going on in the world today, which is what inspired the idea in the first place. I think we have to be, I feel this need to be very careful about the way I write this, so that I'm not offending half the audience with everything I say. Dean, and it has to be universal enough so that people can get it.
Exactly. And you know what I've learned is you can have your opinions, and if you want to influence people, you present your opinions in a certain way to open up a conversation. And I know you understand what I'm saying on that.
I do. It's really about asking a lot of questions. Yeah. It's like in the world that we live in, who do you want to be in the world? And you share examples of that, and let people reach their own conclusions about who and what they want to be.
Right.
But yeah, you can't judge. I mean, you cannot come at people and say this is bad. You have to. you have to deal with it in hypotheticals in a lot of ways, so that people have an opportunity to see options right in front of them.
Exactly. Now, I'm curious, in the upcoming book, do you work in anything about the pandemic? I call that the elephant in the room. To me, that was the great game changer. It totally changed society. Even for me, I've spent a lot of time in places like Africa, in Ebola areas, because I make small documentaries. I still cannot deal with the pandemic and what happened. I can't deal with the fact that everything all over the world came to a stop. It's just, even now, as I speak to you, it's just too weird. And I think it left people burnt out emotionally.
Sure.
All right. I think they roll out the welcome mat when you have a Little House event, because you know what? They want to be taken care of again. They want it to be okay. All right. They want those feelings to come up.
Yeah, no, I think people come to see us to be reminded, and when they see us today, it takes them back to what they felt when they were watching the program when they were very young. It's feelings. And we are able to be a conduit to the expression of those feelings.
Isn't that interesting?
It's about them. It's not, yes, they come to see us, they want autographs and pictures and all that sort of thing. But really what they want is affirmation. I think what they want, Wendy, and a lot, is affirmation that what they saw from us was in some way real, that we are what we presented ourselves to be. And for me, that's a very important component in all of this. Yeah. So I want people to come away from an interaction with me feeling like the person they watched all those that they and may continue to watch, right, is the person that's right in front of them, and what they got was real. And I think that's really, really important. And I think most of us are able, those who do the traveling, the heavy traveling on this, we are able to project that for people. And I think there's a lot of love and affection that comes back at us because of that.
Now, I'm curious, because Little House was not your first shot out of the bag. You joined halfway through the show. Right. Prior to that, you had acted in other things.
Very little. I mean, I really had started. I was in college during those years, and so I grew up in the San Francisco Bay Area. I did commercials in San Francisco, and I was Taft-Hartley'd for SAG on the streets of San Francisco. In there, I did a wonderful movie, The Week, based on Judy Blume's novel Forever. Yeah. Out of San Francisco.
Love Judy Blume, by the way. Grew up with Judy Blume. And
I bet you did. I bet you did. A lot of young women grew up with Judy Blume. And I think she remains a real treasure for young people who are, through Judy, I think are able to get very candid, honest perspectives on some really critical issues that in the case of Forever, that a lot of parents just didn't want to talk about. And so, and it's not talking about it isn't going to stop it. Right. The lack of information can create problems. I think
the lack of information
offers a responsible point of view.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. So you got your start there, and you had also, though, you spent time on a ranch too.
Yeah. So I grew up on a family ranch, and it's still in the family. It was founded in 1885 in the South Bay area. My family came around the Horn in 1849 for the California Gold Rush, and others came across the plains in covered wagons.
I'm a New York girl, born and raised in the Bronx. Yeah, I'm totally living this. So your people came during the Gold Rush time.
Yeah, yeah.
What a family legacy.
Yeah, no, I'm a fifth generation Californian. And we're working on, in the family, we're working on 7 generations in California. And, it's been wonderful to have this place where our family life comes together, and there is consistency. There is a place that is beautiful, that is steeped with family history, the pictures,
Tradition.
all of the traditions of things. Yeah, it's really been special. When I was a kid growing up, there was no electricity on the place. There was no running hot water. Baths where you heated the water on the stove and poured it into the tub,
This
and you
is so
bathed
much
twice.
like Little House.
It was all like Little House. It was all like Little House. Yeah. There was a large multi-generational experience with, great aunts and grandparents and then our generation, our younger generation, we ate together around a big round table with a big lazy Susan in the middle, and we did dishes afterwards together in the kitchen, and we all had our chores of sweeping decks and, doing the things that you have to do as a family to function out. This was during the summers. We weren't living this way all the time. It was great to get there, and it was always amazing to go home at the end of the summer and switch on a light and turn on the sink and have the hot water come out.
Oh my God, we've got
Yeah.
water. But you know what? How rich a background you have because of it, because you're talking about a family that is developing ties in those summers.
Yeah.
Your traditions, knowing each other. When you think, I'm sure you have a lot of friends, as I do, the families are now spread out all over the country.
I know.
I have one daughter, and somebody said to me, that's really selfish. When she was applying to college, I'm like, you have to stay in the Northeast. I'm sorry. And when you graduate from college, I would like you to stay in the Northeast too. And you know what? I have really brainwashed her, and
is that working?
It totally worked. And she, you know what? She's with a great guy from a nice Italian family that agrees with that way of thinking, because grandma and grandpa are still around, auntie and uncle, all that stuff matters to them.
Great.
But so many of my friends, especially actors that have come to New York, they're like lone wolves here, and their families are spread out all over. And, I don't know that works. And now more than ever, I don't think that works.
Yeah. Look, I think it's an interesting challenge for people, because people want to follow their dreams.
Yeah.
And we, as a culture, we encourage people to follow their dreams.
Yeah.
It's important, but nothing happens in a complete vacuum. There's a cost to following those dreams.
Right.
Yeah, no question. Now, and if it works, then there's something wonderful in that. But I'm so grateful growing up that I saw my grandparents every week, multiple times a week. We visited them. We had meals with them. Great aunts. I had our Easter celebrations and 4th of July's were 40, 50 people coming together, family members, to share in whatever we were doing, fireworks, making ice cream with the churn, all of those things we did together. And that does inform who you are. Now, coming to Southern California in the late 70s, I did give up that as a daily thing. My sister gave it up to follow her husband to the East Coast, and she lives in Charlottesville, Virginia, which is and other family members are there, which is really nice. My brother has stayed in the Bay Area, and he's raised 4 sons in the Bay Area, and they really have that ongoing. Yes, and it's really, really good.
Yeah, it is really important. So you after you got out of school, went down to LA?
I had been hired for Little House 2 weeks before I graduated from college. So
that is just amazing to have that in your pocket. Had you been auditioning for a lot?
Yes, I had been. And my agent at the time, a wonderful agent at ICM named Ina Bernstein, said to me, after she got to know me a little bit, she represented Stephanie Zimbalist, who I did Forever with. And right. And so she agreed to sign me. And she said very early on in our relationship, after spending some time with me, she said, if you ever have the opportunity, if we can ever get you an opportunity on Little House, you're going to do it because it's perfect for you. You will flourish there.
That's a good agent. Yeah.
Yeah. And she really believed in it. She turned down things for me that I would have, thought were, because they would have been a nice living thing. But she said, you need to do something that has a kind of quality to it that Little House has. She raved about Michael Landon, that she cried every week watching the program. And this was a, very buttoned up New York woman who had spent her professional life in New York and in Southern California. But she was very clear that she cried like a baby watching Little House on the Prairie. And this is something that you need to do if you get the opportunity to do it. And she made it happen.
Right. She made it happen. That's a really excellent agent. You were blessed to have someone on that level early on in the game. And ICM, of course, everyone knows ICM, but we all know agents come and go. But I love that you're paying homage to this person because she's the one that made it happen for you. She is the one who made it happen for me. And she was very patient about it. Now, I was going back and forth. I took a year off from school. I took 2 fall semesters off and then to be down in Southern California, and then came back to Southern California I was in the fall and then came back to college in 2 spring semesters, which maybe wasn't the best idea because I was coming back during pilot season. So, who knows? And when there was a pilot season, I was going to say pilot season. What's
I know. Just, what is that? It's, it's a year round thing now.
Yeah.
The industry is so, and I really stopped focusing on acting in the late sort of 1990s, early 2000s.
I was going to ask you when you transitioned, and, I know you've done Broadway. I know you're producer, director. What was the deciding factor for you?
I felt like, in all candor, Wendy, I felt like at the time, by the late 90s, I really felt like I had timed out.
Timed out. I have never heard anyone use that expression, but
I'd had 20 years of working in it.
Yeah.
I felt like it felt like the programming was changing. Television was certainly changing to the point where all the things that were, and look, everyone has their time, and you can't pick the time you're in. It's the time you're in. But I really came in towards the end of a time when being blonde hair and blue eyed was a real advantage.
Yeah.
And you can't control that. That just happens to be when I hit it.
No, I mean, everyone looked, I'm seeing you on a stream, but I'm like, oh yeah, great type. I mean, that was the type in that time. You would work. If you could act and look the way you did, you would totally work. It was a set piece. But
and so it really felt like it was shifting. And I also feel like the storytelling was very different. And so I just felt like, and then I'd seen the Ken Burns Civil War documentary.
I love Ken Burns.
Well, Ken Burns is a unique voice in American, and he really changed documentary filmmaking. And he made documentary filmmaking virtually commercial in a way that it had not been before. Just the storytelling was beautiful and simple. David McCullough's incredible voice in that piece, the beautiful pictures, the humanity that he brought to that experience. And I had an opportunity, or I saw an opportunity to create something for my step grandfather, who wanted to tell his life story. And I had never held a camera before. I'd never done that, but I felt intuitively like there was a way to approach this material using that approach and touch his life using that approach. And so I just said to him, if you'll pay for the cost of this, which I think we made it for like $6,000, something like that.
Incredible.
Yeah. And so, including the editorial on a nonlinear environment, or in the early days of Avid media composers. And so we made this, and it was just, what I got from it was, as an actor, you were always the last one hired. You're the first one done. As a producer, if you are part of the genesis of an idea, you are there at the very beginning. You are there when the page is blank. It's only an idea, and you have to turn that idea into something and follow it
all the way through
to the very end. I mean, if you make short films, you totally get that.
Yeah.
You open a document, there's nothing on it, and at the end, it's going to be a very clear, hopefully a clear document about whatever it is that you're making. And you have given yourself this roadmap to create visuals that help tell this story.
But then there's the aftermath, which is so important. You may have told a great story, right? You carried it from the beginning to the end. Now what?
Yeah,
now
now
we've got
what?
the whole distribution thing.
I think that's obviously the hardest. Now, jump forward 25 years, that distribution side is not nearly as ambiguous as it used to be. There are lots of ways to get something seen.
Absolutely.
Getting paid for it is a different matter.
Right.
But getting it seen, that's very possible.
Absolutely.
And there are ways through social media to monetize content that maybe wasn't possible before, where you really had to go through a studio or a distributor to get something seen at all. That's not, and I think that's been the material is not being curated perhaps the way it was before, but you can find virtually anything you want to watch content about. Everything under the sun is there.
It's infinity right now.
Yeah.
And all it takes is a Google search or ChatGPT or whatever.
Yeah.
And you're right. The sheer amount of content, but you're right. The pay scale is way less because there's so much of it. There's so much great stuff being done now. There are things being shot on phones that just blow me away.
Yes.
I'm sure you too,
all of my social media is shot on the phone. I mean, it's all shot in this vertical format. And, and I think sometimes, we're giving up something with that, but when you can shoot it on the phone, cut it on the phone, add music on the phone, add graphics on the phone, and upload it out of your phone onto your platform in a matter of minutes. That's powerful.
It takes me longer than the minutes, but I hear you.
But that's theoretically possible.
Right. It is theoretically possible. So now that we're on this, I'm going to ask you, was it challenging for you, coming out of the very straight acting background that you had? You went up, you auditioned, you had an agent in ICM. Those were things, that it's so different now. Was it hard for you to adjust to using social media to promote what you do?
Well, I met, I think in 2023, in late 2023.
I read that. I think
I met a young woman named Jennifer Brawlier in Pawhuska, Oklahoma.
Yeah.
And here she's actually ringing me right now. I'm not going to talk to her right now.
I was reading about her, but she was your influencer. She was. Yes,
she was. And she approached me in Pawhuska. She lives in Tulsa. She approached me there and said, I want to do your social media. I was looking for that because I knew that I had this book coming out and I knew I needed to be able to talk to people about it in order to help drive awareness of the book. And Jennifer was the perfect person at the perfect time. And we went from 0 to 100,000 followers. Now, look, you have people with tens of millions of followers.
Right.
I have a relatively small following, but it's much bigger than the 4,000 people I had on Facebook, many of whom were, family members and friends and people. But now, and the content was being targeted and pointed in a particular way to achieve a certain result.
Yeah.
And she's done a brilliant job of that. And, I shoot stuff, messaging that I want to do, and I send it to Jen and she puts it up. And that's been an enormous help. And Jen did such a good job. She was hired by Friendly Family Productions, who owns all the rights to the Little House books. And she is doing all the social media for the new series that's coming out on Netflix.
Oh my! And isn't that great? Let's talk about this. Netflix didn't exist back then. Now we have. Listen, I have to tell you, for me, Netflix is like a therapist. Okay, no matter what kind of day I had, and I'm not a big visual watcher because I'm a performer. I'm out doing my thing. But I get home, I'm wired for sound. I hit on my remote because I have a Roku TV. I'm not electronically oriented. I just hit the Netflix button. And all of this, my God, Dean, all this great stuff comes up. How wonderful that you have a Little House sequel coming to Netflix.
Well, it's a reimagining of the series that takes, I think, this is going to be much more tied to the books.
Really? Okay.
So yeah, no, it's going to be much more based in the world of the books, and the show has just been cast with the principal family, and they will start production in June, and it will premiere probably in the second or third quarter of 2026.
I'll be watching.
Yeah, no, I think we're all going to be watching it. And look, there has been a lot of blowback on this from fans of the original series who say, you're gonna wreck this thing, or it's never going to be as good as whatever. And we don't know what it's going to be. My feeling is, Wendy, that it's a different time. The audience has a different sensibility. There is a way to approach this material that can be very satisfying to an audience today that hopefully will draw from earlier years. That, I mean, a lot of people are going to sample it and check it out. And if it works for them, and this looks like a very attractive cast, very capable cast, I'm very hopeful for it. And I think I think we want to keep Little House alive in people's consciousness. And this is a way of, this makes it new again. And the two series, I mean, the original series isn't going away. I mean, last year, Little House streamed 13.3 billion minutes on Peacock.
Incredible.
That's 25,000 years of streaming in a single year.
Amazing, right?
So the show is very vital in people's emotional life. So there's room for more. And if
I'm thinking you're going to pick up a new fan base too, from doing this. That's to me, that would be the whole reason to do it. Listen, we all have to know we have to grow our thing going forward. Times change, but that doesn't mean we shelve the old thing. The original Little House is still going strong with everything that you're doing, but now you're building on that, right?
Yes. I think we'd like to see it build. We'd like to. So our little company that we've created for the original show called Prairie Legacy Productions, we're doing our first event in Columbia, California, in June 6, 7, and 8.
Yes.
Columbia is a location where the show was shot back in its early years. So people are going to be able to come to Columbia and see things exactly as they saw them 50 years ago as they were shot. We're doing a beautiful event on one of the few remaining active steam engines, steam trains in the Sierra Railroad. It's the train that Little House utilized through the years of production. People are going to be taking a ride on the train with us. I think it's going to be really, really fun. The setting is absolutely gorgeous. It's an historic park. And people who come, I think, are going to have a wonderful time. You can check it out at littlehousegoldcountry.com for information and links to tickets, and all of that are there.
Right. And the buildings, of course, are the old buildings from that time. I love that.
It is an 1880s gold rush town. And so it was shot exactly as it looked, and it looks exactly the same today.
Wow.
Yeah.
There is something in this, Dean, that you ended up in this series and that your people were gold rush people. There is some kind of connection with all of this. I don't know all that much.
At the time, I wasn't thinking about that, but certainly you can't miss it.
Yeah. I don't know how much you live in past life regression. I don't know. You're from California.
I really don't. But
right from California, I don't have to tell you. There's a ton of people out there that believe in that. I only know what I've heard, but there's something to this. There's something to your family lineage, and the fact that you're still doing this. Right, you're still in your own way experiencing what your family went through.
Yeah, I think it's a way of that heritage, that life experience is a way for me to contribute. It's a way, it's a place for me in the world where I can add value.
Thank you.
To a situation. And that's very meaningful to me. And I've gotten so much joy out of being associated with this program. Michael said years ago, people will be watching the show long after we're all gone. And when I was 25 years old, I think I didn't quite get that. I thought this is a little hyperbole. Because when you're 25, you're immortal. You're never going
to live forever.
Yeah, exactly. But now, getting ready to turn 69 years old, I'm sort of feeling like, yeah, I get this. And of course, Michael will have been gone for 34 years
I
this
still can't
July,
believe
which is
that.
just
Yeah,
incredible.
incredible.
Yeah, and yet Michael has never been gone and never will
Right.
be gone because those
Exactly.
performances live on.
Yeah. Yeah. And he was such a dynamic
Oh,
human being.
unbelievable.
And when he left us was like way too soon. I don't like when that kind of thing happens. It's out of sorts. It's, what I call untimely. I don't like
Of course.
untimely. I can't find a reason for it. But you brought up a good point. He does still live on in many ways. Besides
absolutely.
yourself, are most of the male cast members not with us anymore?
Yeah, there's one male cast member who was an actor named Stan Ivar, who played the John Carter role in the last full season of the program. He is still with us. Stan is in his 70s. Other than that, I am the senior surviving male in the show now, which I just never would have imagined possible.
No.
So Stan and I are the stalwarts now, and then it's all the kids.
Yeah,
that's who's left now. Now our women, Karen Grassley's still with us.
Yeah.
Kenny Lester is still with us.
Allison,
Charlotte Stewart is still with us, who played Miss Beadle, who people love as America's favorite school teacher. So the women have, and is generally the case. The women have survived much better than the men have. I think
they say the women live longer. This proves it. They say women, outlive men. I don't know, but
I think our men of that era, they lived pretty hard.
Yeah.
Michael burned the candle at both ends.
Did he really?
Really hard for a long time. For him to have accomplished what he accomplished in 54 years.
Right.
It's staggering to me what he did during his years of productivity. And it just seemed to endlessly flow out of him.
Yeah.
But and in everything he accomplished, he has given himself a kind of immortality, but he's not mortally here to experience it anymore. But all of us experience it.
All of you are, you're carrying everything that he was about forward.
Yeah.
Now, when you left Little House, you were on Broadway as well.
Right. So I had done a production of West Side Story in Japan. It was an A production of the show. So it was a, Jerome Robbins sanctioned production, and Jack Wagner was doing, was doing the part, was doing Tony, and he was unable to do this tour. And so they approached me because Little House was so successful in Japan. They approached me about doing this. Now, Wendy, I'd never sung 8 shows a week before. I had no idea.
It's a lot of
I've been studying vocally for a few years with a wonderful the cantor at the Stephen Weiss Temple, Nate Lamb.
Oh, stop it. That's who you studied voice with. That's great.
Yeah.
Who else but a cantor, right?
Oh my God. He was just what a hoot he was. I mean, he was funny, and he said to me at one point, after I'd been working with him for 2 or 3 years, he said, "Okay, you need to go out and audition now. You're ready to do this. You need to get out there and give it a shot." And so he encouraged that. And when my agent then at Triad, an agent named David Westenberg approached me and said they're looking for this, I went and met with the director, Alan Johnson, who was one of the few directors who was sanctioned to do that Jerome Robbins production of West Side. I met with him in a private audition at David's house, and I sang for him, and we read a little bit, and he hired me on the spot. And went off and did that. After getting back from that, about 6 weeks later, they were looking for the first replacement for Rapunzel's Prince for the original production of West Side Story. And I went and sang for Stephen Sondheim, James Lapine, Paul Giammagnani, Joanna Merlin at the Music Center in Southern California. They hired me 2 hours later, and I was off to New York. to do that for a year.
Piece
And
of
I love
cake,
that.
Dean, like just a piece of really. When I think, the people I know that are on Broadway, it's a revolving door these days, but really it was a piece of cake. You met them, you sang for them. They're like, yeah, you have the job. I don't have to tell you, it is not like that.
No, I know it's not like that. I mean, through the course of look, I'm not telling you all the rooms I walked into where they said, no, thank you. I mean, there were 95% of the time you don't get the job.
Right.
I'm telling you about where they said yes.
But they said yes on big things.
They said that on nice things.
Yeah.
But I got a lot of no's. And I can tell you, there's no actor I know who can't relate to this. You have to have such a thick skin to deal with the level of rejection that you get as an actor. There was a point where I just really couldn't, I had no desire to be beaten up that way anymore.
Wow.
And I think, and it's not that people are being mean, but they're not saying yes.
They're not saying yes, and you don't know the reason. And now with these Zoom auditions, I've gotten so good at those. And the ones that I get, I can't tell you was more stellar than the one I didn't get that I should have gotten. Right. So I don't, you know what? I explain this to my daughter who's job interviewing now. I'm like, when the minute that thing's over, forget about it. It didn't happen.
Yeah, right.
You gave it 100%. Right. It has nothing. This is how I feel, Dean. It's got nothing to do with who you are. You did it and you gave it absolutely everything. But you know what? I feel now more than ever, you cannot control it. You can't.
No, look, I think the reality is that casting decisions are made in about 8 seconds. When someone comes on the screen or walks into a room, they know instantly. They don't necessarily know that you're going to be the one, but they know instantly if you could be the one.
Right.
And that's just, as human beings, we have that kind of intuition about, we may not be right, but we form very quick opinions.
Yes,
about
we do. As human beings, we do that.
Yeah, exactly. We do. I mean, it's part of survival. It's an instinct. We assess if someone is someone that we are comfortable with or uncomfortable with, or whatever that is. If we find them attractive, unattractive, we make those decisions really quickly. And so doing an audition, in a sense, I agree with part of what you said. I think you do have to forget about it. And in fact, it's all about who you are.
Yeah.
It's completely about that. And it's not personal.
Right.
It is completely about who you are. It's what you bring into the room, and either that clicks for someone or it doesn't. And you have to be very grateful for the times it clicks. Because it's not going to click all the time.
Right. It's not going to click all the time. And you never know what about you may piss them off. It can be something, and this is true. You remind them of someone that just like in real life, right? You'll meet someone at a party, and I can tell it immediately. Most people just want to talk to me, but I'll get every now and then the person, and I say, oh, Wendy, the unicorn horn is growing out of the middle of your head again. They don't want anything to do with you, and they want to get away. You can tell. You can read their body language. Their eyes go left and right. They don't focus on you. We all get very good at reading body language.
Wendy, who wouldn't want to focus on you?
But you know what? There's somebody that,
No, of course. I get it. I completely get what you're saying.
She said, you're a lot of extra. And I think... that goes through my head, Dean.
A little of you goes a long way.
Better. Yeah. You know what? I'm going to take what you said, a lot of extra. So maybe not everybody's in the mood for a lot of extra. But listen, as performers, it's what we can bring to the party. As writers, it's how you tell a story. Okay. And out there, when you're doing events for Little House, it's how you reach your public. It's how you affect someone that was maybe having a crummy day and is tickled pink to meet Dean and Allison and the members that are there and go back to a time that made them feel really good. That's powerful stuff.
And that is exactly it, Wendy. That is at the core of why these events work.
Yeah.
And that's our commitment to help them have that experience.
Exactly. And then we, of course, we need the backup, your influencer, Jennifer. God bless
Brollier,
her.
who is so incredible.
Yeah, but who's on the phone. She's while you and I are here talking, Jennifer's got your stuff.
She's making videos. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Jennifer's is getting, what an incredible time we live in, Dean, really.
Yeah. Yeah. No, exactly. And I never would have imagined that, she's 26 years old. She has a very different take on the world, and yet there is an old soul in her where she completely gets this. So she has the tools to communicate in the context of today, but all the heart of what the program represents. It's really a perfect match.
But that's a rare thing, and you just stumbled upon her.
I did.
And I can't emphasize that enough, because I have people of all different ages on the show, and age for me has no bounds because I transcend decades. And that's a beautiful thing. And I love what I learned from younger people. I have had people on this show, 85, 86 years old, that are still working, name people in the industry. Freaking incredible. The stories are incredible. How lucky am I to be able to hear what they have to say?
No kidding. No kidding.
Yeah.
And, for someone to have that kind of an active career,
isn't that great?
For decades, that is outlier stuff to have that. And, I love this phrase that I heard years ago, television, the entertainment eats talent the way whales eat plankton. It's, and so to be someone who can sustain over decades, who remains relevant and appealing and attractive to people at a range of ages through their life, that's a real gift. That is talent on a very special level.
Yeah.
And you have to admire those people who are able to generate those careers.
No, exactly. And you know what? And aren't we fortunate when we get to meet them or perform?
Totally.
With them, right?
Totally.
That's the icing on the cake. You've been absolutely terrific. Can you tell us where people can get tickets for your next event again?
So littlehousegoldcountry.com is the website. So we provide information and links to ticketing. And that's the spot, the event, June 6, 7, and 8 in Gold Rush Country in California. So it's about 90 minutes east of Sacramento in the California foothills. It's beautiful, beautiful country. Yeah. And I think it's going to be a really fun event. We have people coming, I think, from 30 plus states and 5 foreign countries at this point.
5 foreign. I mean, what, really the cross-cultural thing also. And we didn't get to talk about that enough, but like Japan, they love this show. You're an ambassador. The show we need ambassadors now.
I agree. I think I think all of us who are a part of it feel so fortunate in order to be able to do that.
To absolutely be able to go out there and reach out and touch people in that way. Yeah. Thank you so much for being here today. I do this hokey thing. When my co-host Tim is here, he knows how to take the picture from the computer. I don't know how to do that. I'm not technical. I was forced because of the pandemic to become a podcast host. I actually invented it all myself because you know what? Everything shut down. And I'm like, no. This is unacceptable. I'm going to hit it in a different way. And that's exactly what I did. But I want to get your beautiful shining face on here. Great. One last question for you. Where can people find Little House on the Prairie merch?
Oh, there's so many places to find it, but you can find it. So you can find it. You can find merch at littlehouseontheprairie.com. Okay. And that's the website that is owned by the rights holder. And so they have a whole collection of things. We have our Little House 50 podcast.com, and we have a merch store. So Allison and I and an actress, a New York actress named Pamela Bob, host the Little House on the Prairie 50th anniversary podcast. We have a small merch store at, so through Little House 50 podcast, you can find that. And we're everywhere you can find podcasts. I'm
surprised
all the museums all the museums have merchandise
in the gift shop, and I'm surprised no one has come up with a Little House store, right? An old building, just like you would find.
Oh,
And
you do at the museum sites. They have,
but I'm
all
saying
of them have that.
a
But
standalone, like American Girl was a standalone, But to franchise the brand that way, I'm always
I think they'd love to do that. And I think the Netflix opportunity is a way to reach an audience in a whole different way. I think anything's possible.
Anything's possible. Dean Butler, thank you. You have been a delight. I wish you all the best going forward. And
Thanks,
thank you
Wendy.
for everything that you brought into people's lives.
Thank you for having me.
To everybody who tuned in today. We'll be back next week. Bye-bye.